Genesis chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Because of this, she named him Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "I have a great struggle with my sister, and I have won." So she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What good fortune!" So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, "How happy I am! The women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, she, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too?" "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband." So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him six sons." So she named him Zebulun. Sometime later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." She named him Joseph and said, May the Lord add to me another son." After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you." But Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." He added, "Name your wages and I will pay them." Jacob said to him, "You know, you know how I have worked for you and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now when may I do something for my own household?" "What shall I give you?" he asked. "Don't give me anything," Jacob replied. "But if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future whenever you check on the wages you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark colored will be considered stolen. Agreed, said Laban. Let it be as you have said. That same day he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a three-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh cut fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the dark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in the heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the throws in front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Jacob. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. The word of the Lord, Genesis chapter 30. This is a beautiful story again about the love triangle of Leah, Rachel, and Jacob. So here we see um, the the boring of sons and daughter of Rachel and Leah, and including their servants as well. So we see here that there were four sons already born from Leah or of Leah, but Rachel was not able to bore Jacob any son. So, at the last part, Rachel was able to born or bore a son for Jacob, whose name is Joseph. And then I think Joseph was the youngest of all. So there were total of 12 sons and one daughter from Leah, and some of them came from their servants who were Zilpah and what's the name of the other one? N- uh, Zilpah, who is that? Bilhah. So we can see here they still have this what we call envy to each other, right? So um, it it doesn't mean that this story was recorded in the Bible that we should be like Rachel as well, that always you know envy her sister Leah for having child, because um, the Lord listens to our cries. So we don't see here, based from the story from the Bible, which is written, we don't see here that um, um, Rachel called out to the Lord. It was just on the latter part that she thanked the Lord for having a son through her servant Bilhah. When she said, then Rachel said, God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son. Because of this, she named him Dan. So um, through her servant Bilhah, she owned the son as her own son. But we know that even though it is your servant who bore a son, still you don't own the the child, right? Because it was born by someone else's women. But because if we can still remember in the last on the story of Abraham and Sarah, right? This was exactly the same purpose why Sarah gave a gave Abraham a second wife, or her her servant um, Hagar, just for her to have a son from her servant. But indeed, it didn't happen that way, right? Because still, it is not her son. So eventually, there were quarrels, something like that. So this too happens to them. When Rachel gave her servant to Jacob as a wife. So we can see here that as human, we do certain things that is not really pleasing to God, because it's a sign. This action is a sign of unbelief, or having no trust to God, that God will really um, give you something else, a blessing from Him. So you do your own strategy, your ways, in order for you to obtain that blessing. So we call it shortcut. So eventually, this will have consequences, and God still, um, you know, bless their family through these childrens, because these sons of Jacob became the 12 tribes of Israel. They were the start of the 12 tribes that will eventually become a nation. So still, even though we made mistakes, like what happened to David with his mistress, what's the name of that? Who bore Solomon? Um, I forgot the name, but still, God chose those mistakes to be a blessing. God can turn our mistakes, our mess, into blessings, as long as we come to Him and, you know, really ask Him. So, having done, if you we have many mistakes in our lives, we've done a lot of, um, you know, unpleasant things to others. We just need to come to God and ask for forgiveness, and God will be um, you know, very willing to forgive us and turn that sin or mistake into a blessing. But still, the consequences will be there, because it's our action. So, yeah, it's just God is so good and He's so powerful. So, thank you for watching this video, and God bless.